So for the past few days, I've been watching a bunch of videos from YouTubers, including reviewtechusa, who are commenting on all the recent layoffs from AAA gaming studios and acting like we're headed towards another video game crash. Because so many people in the industry are losing their jobs, and I just wanted to make a brief video to give my opinion on the subject and explain why all of that is a bunch of bullshit. But before I explain why all these layoffs aren't an indication towards a market crash, I need to explain what the video game console crash of 1983 was and explain why it's a completely different situation. The reason why the video game crash of 1983 happened was because there was a complete oversaturation in the market. Basically, there were a shit ton of consoles from companies like Atari and Milton Bradley being pumped out, and any jackass could program a game and have a major publisher mass produce it. And this was an issue for customers who didn't want to get ripped off, because gaming news outlets weren't really a thing yet. So if you walked into your local electronics store, you didn't know if the game you bought was good or a bugged out mess. One other major thing that people seem to forget is that the whole gaming crash of 1983 was a phenomenon that only existed in North America. The Japanese arcade and European computer market was still booming. Not to mention the fact that most people didn't even know if video games were here to stay or were just a fad that people won't remember in 10 years. So needless to say, all of these layoffs that are going on has nothing to do with the quote-unquote market crash. In my opinion, it has to do with two things. First off, tactics that AAA studios like EA, Ubisoft, and Activision have been relying on for the past decade aren't as successful anymore because most people can't afford it like they used to. Right now, America is going through a major recession. And that's not my opinion, by the way. It's a fact that the cost of living is way more than it was 5 years ago. Not to get too personal or anything, but back in 2019, $150 could feed me for a whole month. In 2024, that same $150 can only feed me for a couple of weeks, if that. So now people are at the point where they have to choose between whether they want food or get the new game that they've been hyped for. And the new game that they've been hyped for has a chance of being a bug-ridden mess that requires a day one patch to fix, being slowed down by always online DRM, or being riddled with microtransactions. And most financially stable adults don't have the time to worry about all that. Live service titles like Babylon's Fall, Battlefield 2042, and Payday 3 flopped hard because nobody who enjoys live service games wants to invest their money into yet another game when they're already comfortable with the ones they're currently playing. Sure, titles like Fortnite and Counter-Strike are still going strong, but that's because they're Fortnite and Counter-Strike. They've already established themselves and people don't want to move away from it. As for people like me who don't play that many live service games and enjoy single-player stuff, for the first time in a long while, we're seeing a rising trend of gamers willing to spend $40 to $50 on a single-player focused title that innovates more on the gameplay or a $30 remaster of an older generation title stuck on 20-year-old hardware. Games like Hi-Fi Rush, Pizza Tower, Elden Ring, SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, Persona 3 Reload, Klonoa 1 and 2, Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3, the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters, and Bomb Rush Cyberpunk sold well, and are beloved by many, because they rely on a fun gameplay loop that gets progressively more challenging as it goes on, and they don't drag on for so long that you get bored of playing them. The second reason why so many people are being laid off is due to the fact that everyone is sick of political correctness being shoehorned into a game where it doesn't belong. And before someone in the comments section tries to actually me to death, I'm not saying that a story or narrative in a video game can't be inspired by politics if that's what the writer wants, and it's at least written competently enough. I'm only referring to games like the Saints Row reboot, Forspoken, and The Last of Us Part 2, where it's obvious that whoever's in charge of the story wants to further their own political agenda by creating a strawman character that you're supposed to hate, throwing in family trauma to make the main character seem more likable than they actually are, or make someone be the black hole of comedy by having them make wisecracky jokes that are only funny if you agree with their political opinion on a divisive issue. And I know that reviewtechusa said in his video that this is only like 2% of the reason why the layoffs are happening. But I know better, and I know that he knows better. Woke writing has been a popular trend since around the mid-2010s, and people are finally starting to look at it for the cliche that it is. So whenever a new game trailer comes out and it gives off the type of stereotypical woke vibes, people see it for the shit that it is and are just choosing not to purchase it, me included. Nobody wants to sit down on their couch after a long week at work to play a game full of Oscar bait torture porn. But now we're at the point where AAA gaming studios aren't just trying to force inclusivity for the sake of forcing inclusivity, they are being financially rewarded by game design consultants for doing so. Sweet Baby Inc., as well as others, have been regularly working with companies like EA and Activision to nitpick anything they see that could be deemed offensive, and I find this to be insanely stupid and a complete waste of labor. And just to be transparent, I have no issue with representation of a minority group or a political topic being explored. Again, so long as that's what the writers want to do and it's not lazily written. What I do have an issue with, however, are these game design consultants acting like an outside force or a ghostwriter to nitpick things that they don't like and telling a AAA game studio to change it because they find it offensive. When you let a developer breathe, you get some of the best games ever made. But when you let that same developer get nagged on by a game design consultant, you get skibbity toilet. So yeah, it's really just these two reasons that you're seeing all these layoffs. It has less to do with a quote-unquote impending market crash, and more to do with AAA studios following market trends and going in a different direction than they were for so long. And if these trends continue, it wouldn't shock me if within the next 5 years, that gaming will go back to how it was in the PS2 era, because gamers are starting to shift towards buying single-player games that are less about being photorealistic or having 100-hour campaigns, and more about having a unique style with a story that doesn't overstay its welcome. And if that ends up happening, I can't wait for AAA gaming studios to follow that direction. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.